Dear organizers, distinguished participants, and honored speakers. Unfortunately, due to last-minute engagements, I am not able to join you in this debate, but I very much like to share my message and views ahead of your debate. As you mentioned, climate change is a reality, and environmental degradation is only one example of its effects. Another reality is that currently we are facing a crisis caused by the novel coronavirus pandemic. The crisis deepened existing problems our sector faced and brought in the frontline realities, but also presented the opportunity to a green recovery and reconstruction that will support member states to embrace a low-carbon future. EU is committed to the ambition of climate neutrality by 2050 and tackling climate change with the aim of working towards climate innovation and digitization, enhancing the role of renewable energy sources while remaining competitive and assuring growth in transforming our industrial sectors. This requires an integrated and mainstream industrial policy with a focus on research and innovation and development, maintaining the security of energy supply in the Union in the process of transition to greener sources of energy. It is also imperative that environmental policies and industrial ones reinforce each other and not seen as one subservient to the other. Your session today has in its title the focus on energy and climate and also the transformation of European economy towards. Energy and climate are interlinked and will always be, as energy accounts for 2/3 of total greenhouse gas. Consequently, all the efforts that will concentrate towards tackling climate change will need to have energy as a major component. In the field of energy, the strategic partnership EU-United States has at its core continued cooperation for energy security, diversification of sources, market design, and cleaner and renewable energy technologies. Moreover, we share a common approach on the need to promote open, transparent, competitive, and sustainable global energy markets. I'm a big supporter of deepening the relationship between European Union and United States, between Central and East European Union, between my country, Romania, and United States, and not only in the field of political cooperation or military cooperation, but also to reinforce and strengthen the economic and energy dimension. As we progress toward climate neutrality, the volume of natural gas consumed in Europe will progressively reduce. By 2050, the share of natural gas in gaseous fuels is projected to reduce to 20%, and most of remaining 80% fuels should be of renewable origin. But the future mix of these gaseous energy carriers, biogas, biomethane, hydrogen, or synthetic gases is hard to project. The European Commission published last July a new strategy on hydrogen, which intends to make renewable or green hydrogen an important part of energy transition to climate neutrality in 2050. And although the strategy focuses predominantly on green hydrogen, the Commission acknowledges the need for a gradual approach investing in the blue hydrogen. And this is also the vision of my colleagues in the Industry, Research and Energy Committee that I am chairing in the European Parliament. Today, neither renewable hydrogen nor low-carbon hydrogen are cost competitive against fossil-based hydrogen. Hence, the strategy includes a roadmap on how the EU can turn clean hydrogen into a viable solution to decarbonize different sectors over time. I can assure you, in my capacity as chair of the ITRE committee in the European Parliament, my long-term commitment to achieve the ambitious targets on climate policies with coherent policies, with a competitive industrial sector taking up the transformation towards clean and renewable energy, and encourage further innovation, while maintaining and reinforcing the dialogue and strong cooperation with our long-standing partner, the United States. Thank you so much. A lot of success in your work and in the debate today. Thank you.
I will try to use my expertise to speak about concrete steps towards climate neutrality, towards European New Green Deal, which was proposed lately, with our distinguished speakers, among which we have Izabela Olszewska, member of the board of Warsaw Stock Exchange. Hello, nice to have you here. We speak live, but we also have some online speakers to be presented, like Katarzyna Sobudka-Demianowska, head of e-mobility at ABB. Do we hear each other?
Hello, greetings.
That's great, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So everything works. So I will present other speakers. We also have Carlo Pignolini, CEO of Enel Romania. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we hear each other, so that's nice. It's great to have you here. We will look forward to your approach on European Green Deal, especially. And another speaker is Sebastian Jabłoński. He's with us. He's the TRMEW Obrót CEO. It's a Polish company which is trading on energy markets. Great to have you here. So in this group, we'll look at very wide topic. This topic brings energy and climate together. This topic is something new for people who need to be included in this big transformation that is already happening. It's happening in Poland, it's happening all over the world, but especially in European Union, which presented a plan of European Green Deal, which is one of the ways of achieving a new pace of European economy, even in spite of this coronavirus crisis. It appears that European Green Deal could be another way of overcoming this big crisis. So let's look what our distinguished speakers have to say about this, those changes on European energy market, on European climate policy. And we would start with Carlo Pignolini, CEO of Enel Romania. I would ask you about the European Green Deal. How do you see the influence of this plan on your investment? Do you already plan something in accordance to European Green Deal? And especially how to include, how to involve society in this energy transition, which is happening right now with the help of companies like yours?
Good afternoon to everybody. Hello, my name is Carlo Pignolini. Thanks a lot for the invitation, because obviously it's a good opportunity to me to talk about these topics. So coming to your point, basically, what definitely the new Green Deal will we are involved in this kind of new Green Deal. I would say that. As you know, Europe was the cradle of the first effort in the world to overcome the problem of climate change. In the first phase, I would say, in the first decade that today has expired, basically, we were focused on mainly already were addressed some points like obviously the renewables for the generation, but also in the transportation there were some targets, and also in the efficiency in the building, in the industry whatsoever. I would say that the comparison between what has been happened during this decade with the new one that is expecting us is that probably in the first phase this was still this kind of issue were reserved to a certain number of people, the experts of the sector. Then during the decade was more than clear that all the efforts put in place were not enough, and the big trouble of climate change pop up basically also as a trouble for everyone. Now, the problem of the climate change, in my opinion, is really the turning point, in the sense that now the awareness, not only of the main stakeholders or the experts of those sectors, but also the opinion of people is probably aligning on the fact that this is one of the big issues of the world, not only of Europe, obviously. So starting from this point, the way in which Europe has facing this new phase, I would say, of this big effort in order to decarbonize the world is definitely different. Why? First of all, in my opinion, the Green Deal, for how it has been thought and designed, is basically pervading all the sectors, all the part of the economy. So I would say all the society, in the sense this obviously is the ambition, but it's more than clear that without the effort of everybody, is almost impossible to achieve those targets. This is, I would say, the most important difference, in my opinion, in comparison to what has been done before and now what is we are expecting. And that's why this is the Green Deal is not relevant only to certain sector, but also to the industry. The circular economy is another word that probably in the past has used less, but now is becoming more and more important, in the sense that this other expression is implying a big effort in all respects of the chain value of all the businesses. No, this is, in my opinion, the first point. Now, coming to us, as you know, the sustainability was since 6 years ago was one of our pillars, and we have also shown that sustainability at the beginning was probably something that was driving us into the future. Now, also looking what's happening, for instance, in the financial world, sustainability is considered as a must. I want to remind the letter sent any year by the BlackRock CEO to everybody, all the CEOs in which they have invested. BlackRock, you know, is the most important fund in the world, in which they are clearly addressing the needs of sustainability in all the activities in which this company are involved. And so definitely we are also in Romania, obviously as an L group, but now as far as obviously I'm focused on Romania. Also in Romania, throughout the platform that we have, we are strongly believing that we have to keep investing in renewables. Once again, you know that in Europe there was we were the cradle of renewables, I would say, but for a long time there was a stop due to some changes also in the way in which the renewables were thought. The incentives were very generous, and sometimes so this generates some troubles. Now in the world has been shown that the renewables are now in the grid parity condition. They are clearly the future of the generation at the world level.
So we know it's necessary. You say sustainability is a must, but how to include people in this into this revolution so no one is left behind?
Okay, this is a very good and interesting because I already told you that we need all the people involved, and so clearly the customer are now in comparison with the past should become also the actors of these choices. Why? For instance, in my opinion, there are a lot of examples. E-mobility now is the decision.
Speak about it in a second.
Yeah, sorry. In any case, in the customers for sure are at the chance to decide on what they can do. Obviously, we need first of all information. So we know, coming to the point that already mentioned before, is not any longer the time in which the people are not aware of what's happening. So information are needed. Customer, for instance. I want to mention only one point. The demand response is something that will involve definitely the final customer, obviously starting from probably the business customer, but at the very end, if you are thinking prosumers, example, also the customer themselves that are on one side generator of energy, but also the consumer, they have to decide how to decide to set the consumption in a more I would say intelligent way, in the smart way, and digitalization. That's why it's key, because only through digitalization is possible to approach in the proper way these kind of issues.
Okay, thank you very much. That's great that you mentioned the e-mobility, because we have a very nice speaker who is specialized in e-mobility sector. Let's give a floor
to her.
Yeah, let's give a floor to Ms. Sobotka Demianowska. She was responsible for e-mobility in Polish Orlen company, the biggest company in this part of the world, the biggest company in emerging Europe, but she's working in ABB right now. He's also devoted to e-mobility. So transport sector, we spoke about climate, about energy, but also transport sector is a big part of this revolution. How do you see the European Green Deal will change it, and how to make people be included in it? Because if I were to buy a car, I would choose the conventional because of the economic reasons. So
right now,
yeah, right now, today. We'll see in a month. So what to do to include people in this e-revolution also?
Okay, maybe we could divide the two, this sector for two parts, one for the individuals and also for the public transport. The revolution for the public transportation is already ongoing. When we look on the Polish cities, like many of them have already electric buses together with the infrastructure. And this is the revolution that is really influenced by the people on the local governments because of the air quality, because of the noise, and also the quality of life. So this is ongoing, and a lot of other projects in Poland and in Europe are ongoing right now. But regarding, and of course, this is supported by the EU subsidies in many cases. That's why the cost of buying the e-buses for the municipalities, it's more or less the same right now with the conventional buses. So for this reason, the cities are really interested in buying the electric buses. The difference between the normal bus and the electric bus is 2 times. So it's make a difference to buy the bus without the subsidies. So that's why the cities are not interested. And the subsidies are really crucial for growing the public transport, like electrifying the public transport.
But so do you see a big potential in our part of the world? Because we know Western Europe, for example, has this automobile sector, which is really big, which is really strong. And in our part of the world, there are also some initiatives like Izera, Polish electric car, other examples of interest in e-mobility. Do you see a big company in our part of the world to invest in such sector?
It is already ongoing. Like, for example, ABB has the R&D center in Krakow. That is one of the part of the R&D center is devoted for e-mobility. That is developing e-bus infrastructure. So the Polish scientists are already doing this. But also we have companies like Volvo, Solaris, battery companies that already invested in e-mobility in Poland and growing that business. And the new projects are also ongoing, following, is rather not following, to like making the first step with the new products like chargers or buses. For them, like individual cars, I'm really crossing the fingers for Izera project. I really would like to have a test drive with this car soon.
I've only seen it. I didn't try it yet.
I think it doesn't drive yet, so we just all could see this car.
2023. That's the date of the first production. It is set.
I keep the fingers for this time. But really, it's a good project in terms of like increasing the awareness and also giving the option. But nowadays we have many different cars, electric cars to be chosen. For example, new ID3 has recently announced the price and the possibility to buy. I agree with you that the price it's bottleneck of this car is because it's much more expensive. But these kind of cars give e-mobility and electric cars. They give them possibility for the new business models. maybe you don't need to own the car. Maybe you can rent it and pay the monthly fee together with the your electricity bill, insurance.
Okay, so Carlo
and so
agrees with you. Sorry, can we ask Carlo for a Romanian perspective, because it's another big country in our part of the world which could emerge in e-mobility sector. What do you think about it, Carlo? Well, we can't hear you.
You're right.
Oh. Now it works.
Thanks. So there are a couple of comments here. So here in Romania, we are lucky in the sense that the government had decided to also to subsidize the electric cars, because they are realizing the difficulty for the private owners to basically to achieve a sort of parity in order to buy the cars. I guess that, as usual, this will be a path. Katrina knows better than me the sector, but it's a path in which obviously the maturity of the market will diminish. Let's make a comparison with renewables. Renewables at the beginning were very expensive. After 10 years time, in 10 years time, they are at the grid parity. We might say more or less the same for cars, probably even less time, because it's depending from the technology that is growing most, I would say, more quickly than expected, in my opinion. The other point is, as NLX, we as NL, we are clearly strongly interested in this sector, because we are strongly believing that it's a way to fight the climate change. On the other hand, obviously we are undertaking some investment for the deployment of the infrastructure network needed in order to make available also the charge for the cars.
Okay, so we know that this revolution is here, that is ongoing, that companies from all around the Central and Eastern Europe are looking into e-mobility, into clean energy investment, decentralized energy, businesses that would include people, include society in this process. But what is the financial market perspective? So people who make money in stock exchanges anywhere, I'm asking Ms. Izabela Olszewska, is it a fashion or is it a concrete business that is already happening? And could you look from the wider perspective? Because of course we can speak about an environment issue, but there is always ESG, so environment, social and governance issues together. So what's your approach?
Yes, thank you very much for this question. So as I represent the stock exchange, so I'll be trying to approach the topic of this panel from this financial markets angle. And in the financial markets, we have the very important trend, which is ESG investing. And you explain that ESG has 3 legs. So this is, first of all, E, environment, and this is about climate, pollution, carbon, but also as social things like human rights, like anti-discrimination policies, employees' rights, and corporate governance, which means business fairness, transparency, business ethics. So what does it mean ESG investing? So it means that the investors, when look at the company, so on the top of the financial performance or financial results of this company, so they analyze first of all the financial results, but on the top of that, they also add some analysis of non-financial things like ESG. And finally, they decide whether to invest in this company or not. And of course, there are some opinions, even in Polish market, that the ESG investing is a kind of fashion that will pass. So in my view, it is not an option. And I think
companies
that
want to be
yes,
responsible.
That's true. And I think even more that the ESG trend will shape the capital market, the financial markets globally in the nearest and farther future. So I think that there are some factors, some reasons, some catalysts, like first of all, regulations. So these are very important.
A huge climate regulation, right?
Huge climate regulations. And so what we can expect in the area of regulations, first of all, the regulation for reporting by listed companies, by issuers. So it will be, the taxonomy will be unified to help the investors to understand properly ESG solutions. Also, the regulation then concerns all categories of financial entities. So banks, insurance companies, investment companies, exchanges. So they are pushed to include ESG criteria in their core business.
Do we have any numbers about it? How strong is this involvement in responsible investment?
Yes, so I can provide you with the number, with the value of ESG assets under management. So this is estimated on the level of more than 30 trillion US dollars. So the market is huge. So it's absolutely huge, and the lion's share belongs to European funds, followed by American funds. But what is important is that when, as a stock exchange, when we have roadshows with our foreign investors, the big guys like BlackRock, Amundi, Aviva, so global mutual funds and asset managers. So the message is clear that the ESG inclusion in their asset management is 100% by the end of 2021. So what does it mean for us? On the stock exchanges, especially on the Warsaw Stock Exchange, these global investors, foreign investors, they generate over half of turnover. So we can't afford not to ensure that our companies, which are listed on our exchange, they will not include ESG in their strategies, in their business policies, and they must report it in a proper way.
So they need to, but do they want to do it? Do you see maybe a new generation of investors who just care about climate and just want to invest in it? Do you see this approach?
So, of course, there are a lot of points here. So, first of all, education is absolutely mandatory. The other thing that in partnership with EBRD, European Bank of Reconstruction Development, we have just undertaken is the project aimed at preparation of the practical guidelines. So what is expected by investors? So this is very important for our issuers. But also, I think that the most important is also the entering into the market, the new generation of investors. So we have millennials, we have Generation Z, and the people grow up with the full awareness of environmental and I would say ethical issues. So for them, it's very important how they invest their money. So they want to invest in assets, in financial instruments of the companies that they deal with ESG in a proper way. So I think that this is another catalyst. So regulations, but also the behavior of the new generation of investors.
Okay, so let's switch to a trader, to Sebastian Jabłoński from TRMFW Obrót, so the Polish company which is trading. How the trade will change because of the European Green Deal, because of this green approach to any investment? Do you invest in a green way already?
Yeah, we are definitely fully green company. Basically, I think that I established this company as a result of the fact that I was living in Germany for 5 years, and I was developing my trading skills and awareness of energy because when I was young or younger,
we are all young, let's say, for the record.
Exactly. No tax.
Exactly.
So basically, I couldn't find any company here in Poland to work for because it's kind of old school market, as all our countries are. So I had to go to work to Germany for one of top 5 European traders. And then I decided I want to come back. And after 5 years, nothing has changed. So the only option for me was to establish my own company. And when I was doing that, I had to answer myself some questions. The base point was that I didn't want to deal with old power that is going away. So basically,
You mean coal, maybe?
I mean anything fossil.
Anything?
Yeah.
That's included, also for the record.
Anything fossil. Because coal is not really the biggest issue. We are divesting from coal as Poland already for 30 years. And each plan that we had as a country was too pessimistic. Basically, in 1990, as communism was falling, we were producing 193 million tons of coal per year. And the government was planning to keep that production. That was the plan. In 2000, we had 100 million tons of coal production. And then we had a plan to keep that production. Now we have 60 million tons of coal production. And surprise, we have two scenarios. One is to keep the production. And the second one is to...
production.
No, basically the second plan is to go to 40 million in 2050. But even if I just extrapolate the trend that we had already for the past 30 years, we go to 0 in 2035. And as future always surprises us, I believe that's going to be way faster. Because
so what does it mean from the trading market for your business?
For my business,
yeah.
Basically, when I was building this company, I attracted a lot of people that had the same problem as me. So basically, they care about environment. They have now nowhere to work. Because we are, in general, as emerging Europe, countries of back office. And I didn't want to be back office employee. And many people don't want to. And big corporations from the Western world won't bring here front office jobs because it brings threat to their business model. Because you don't teach people your business. So
you taught your business to your people.
Yeah, basically we have very extensive training. We hire mainly juniors, just meteorologists we hire seniors. But now we already transitioning to developing juniors because we have the best meteorologists in Europe. They are working from our company, not due to money, but due to higher values. Obviously, they are not disappointed with the wages because they don't correspond with Polish market. They are as in the trading world. So we are basically proving that the right approach can lead to development. So they work because they want to do something cool. And basically that's how we should transform energy market, as well as from the trading perspective, but from any other perspective. We can only go to zero emission if people see the transformation as a chance for a better life. And that can be only achieved if we transform from this government stocking or big corporation stocking to everyone being involved in the process. So people have to see basically values for them.
So intervention from Ms. Izabela Olszewska, and then we will wrap up.
Yeah, I would like to add something because you mentioned the energy companies, and we have the biggest energy companies in Poland listed on our exchange. And recently we have launched the WIG ESG index, which is belongs to the family of WIG indices, our Polish indices. But we decided to include all the companies, also energy companies, and also coal mining, one coal mining company. Of course, the share of this company in the index is very low. However, we thought that at the beginning, it's really worth giving chance to every company to look at the strategy and business policy from the perspective of ESG. So we didn't want to exclude energy company, but give the chance to prepare the ESG policy and present to investors. So we started, I think, the education. So we don't want just to say, okay, we don't want you because you are in the energy sector. So of course we will exclude it automatically from
They will
our
adapt,
ESG activity.
right?
Yes, and we know that these companies they are in the process of preparation of ESG ESG policy, and they started to report green information.
So the revolution is here. We have one revolutionary already in our panel, but this situation.
Just to put in the perspective, the Polish energy market is 160 terawatt hours. So that's what the, let's say, Big Four and plus some other companies represent. And our company already this year has a turnover of 50 terawatt hours, which represents of almost 40% of Polish market.
But we keep our fingers crossed for everybody to invest wisely, to invest in future, in green future, which is obviously coming. Everyone was underlining it in their comments. So some quick words about this silent issue we have with European Green Deal right now for the end. I would ask every one of you, starting with people online, about the coronavirus impact on the things we speak about. Just few words from everybody, and we let's start with Ms. Katarzyna Sobutka-Demianowska.
From the side of the companies like ABB and building infrastructure for EVs, we've noticed at the beginning of the pandemic there were some like stops in the investments. However, nowadays we see that the e-mobility world is really speeding up, and a lot of investments in terms of infrastructures and also the electric car. Actually, the pandemic also changed the perspective for the individual transport, and also the awareness of people for the environment and being healthy life, being living together like in a good relation with the environment. And there is also, in general, not in Poland, but in the world, there is much more interest in the EVs nowadays than previously. So actually, we've noticed some stops at the beginning, but nowadays we see that it's speeding up quite fast.
So I hope the trend continues. And Carlo, what's your take on it?
So obviously, COVID is a tragedy from a sanitary standpoint. On the other hand, I would say that was an extraordinary occasion to reflect on some issue. The lockdown has, give us the chance to reflect. It is probably a unique occasion, even though once again it is a tragedy, is a consequence of the strategy. I would say that in this sense, what we are observing, I agree with Katrina, that something that was probably in the past thought but not believed probably in depth, now is becoming, for instance, to lead a company remotely, as we have been forced to do, is something possible. And also to reflect on the big issue like the climate change. I guess that this tragedy will bring a lot of benefits in this respect, in the sense that probably the people will be more and more sensitive on these issues. and probably more involved. That is the most important thing, because once again, in my opinion, this is a change that we can do, as also my group CEO is saying, without leaving no one behind, because this is something that is impacting on all of us,
okay,
and
so
we should believe.
I need to ask you about this Romanian approach, because we've heard what Warsaw Stock Exchange is doing, what Polish energy sector is announcing. Do you see some similarities in Romania?
Oh, definitely yes, in the sense that obviously Romania has presented its plan. Just today has been published some special program for installation of PV plants for prosumers, let's say, but also for, not only, you already mentioned for e-mobility, the chance to subsidize the cars. Now there is a special program also for facilitate the installation of charging station that so far was missing. This is today is happening, and I guess this is a good sign in that direction.
So how coronavirus influences traders? Mr. Jabłoński, could you elaborate on this?
Yes, basically we have seen increased volatility on the markets. First, the prices have collapsed to unseen levels on electricity, gas, oil, everywhere. First time we have seen oil prices going negative, and then everything has rebounded.
Yeah, now it's like $40 per barrel.
Yes, and in Germany, even we had highest renewable generation on Wednesday ever, and it didn't cause negative prices. So we see the systems coping better with volatility of renewables.
So you think we already adapted to a new situation with coronavirus in place?
Yes, basically we've proven to ourselves as an energy system that we are flexible already in some way. But for me, from like trading, more than from the trading perspective, what is important on the coronavirus case is that we have stopped the world, and it would have never happened otherwise, that we could have seen what is the real impact of our everyday life on the environment. Because in the first weeks of the pandemic, when everything have stopped, we could have seen dolphins coming back to Venice. Or even me from my apartment on Żoliborz, I could see like birds that are usually seen in the national parks flying around the city. So this is huge impact on the society, because we fight with cancer that kills people every day. Okay, we say that we want to have cleaner air, but we have just a virus that might kill just a fraction of population, and we stop the world. We don't do that for climate.
Okay, so we hear those assuring news about everything going back to normal. It's really assuring, it's really nice, but from the general perspective of investors from Warsaw Stock Exchange, Ms. Olszewska, are they more hesitant? Are they afraid? Because, you know, when you're afraid of crisis, you don't think about higher purpose first. You think about the security and so on. Do you see this hesitance on market, or do people want to proceed with this revolution towards more responsible investment policy?
Of course, so at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, so in March, so we observe a lot of activity from investor side, because they were afraid of what's going on the market. But I think that currently what is very important it's for the investors is to invest in the companies. They limit their risk. So, for example, the ESG companies, when the management board just prepares some reporting on ESG. So first of all, it has to analyze or risk. They are more aware of different risks, and they can manage it in a more proper way. So I think that it will be also the future that the investors, both institutional and investors, they will look at the companies that fulfill this ESG criteria, I think, in a much better way. So they will be more focused on this kind of investment, on these kinds of companies.
Okay, so I would put a general question in place about the money, because we spoke about the revolution that is going on, that is justified, that is something good for the society, for the environment, and so on. But is it a good business? Is it an opportunity to make Europe emerge stronger, European economy grow faster, and to achieve a fast pace again? Who would like to approach this issue from our panelists? Mr. Sebastian.
I believe that's great opportunity because now we have kind of a good atmosphere to explain that the transition is not a challenge. We shouldn't fear. We should look at it as an opportunity. The amount of fossil fuels that we import as European countries is huge. That's a big part of our economy. Just Poland imports roughly 20 billion euro of fossil fuels every year. And that's basically the money that is flowing out of the country, and it's developing some other countries, mainly OPEC and Russia. That's main sources of oil and gas and coal that is coming to Poland, because
apparently,
yeah, because Poland is also coal importer. And if we invest into green technology in terms of renewables, in terms of green hydrogen, we create, first of all, a lot of jobs, because not only we substitute the fossil fuels in electricity production, but we create extra 300,000 jobs that will substitute the jobs away in the oil extraction, in the gas mining. And basically we will move from 80,000 jobs that we have now in the coal mining industry in Poland to 300,000 jobs in renewables, not even including the jobs that we will have in the e-mobility sectors.
Yeah, you brought up e-mobility. Katarzyna, would you like to get to this point?
Actually, I would like to share my experience with SME Instrument, one of the EU funding scheme for supporting SMEs in terms of innovation. And recently I had the opportunity to evaluate some of the projects, and they're really some of them, they're really like a new breakthrough technologies that they really need some funding to bring to the market. But it shows the huge potential of European scientists and innovators to approach the e-mobility, energy storage, and other technologies to the market that will change. They make a change from fossil fuels to green technologies. So this is one of the instruments that that for sure it could be used for that.
Dear speakers, I guess we were able to bring some hope to our discussion, to our listeners, and it's really assuring that it's not that bad. Even with this coronavirus crisis we need to face, we will fight it, and we will be stronger afterwards, especially our part of this big emerging Europe. Thank you very much, our distinguished guests, our listeners, everyone who is participating in this conference. It was my pleasure. My name is Wojciech Jakubik. See you soon, online or live. Thank you very much.